Hello, in this video I am going to show you the border classes that are built into Bootstrap 5. Pretty simple, allows you to add a border. I will also provide a link to this API page for all the border stuff that Bootstrap provides. So you know how to add borders, take borders, the colors, the width, the radius, the sizes, all that stuff. I'm going to cover some of this and you'll be able to see the rest of it on their website. So we've got this little div right here with some lorem ipsum text. There's a column -3. If I wanted to add a border, we could do border dash, and then where we want it. So let's say if I want it on the right hand side, if I save that, reload, it's right there. It's a bit hard to see, so let me zoom in. You can probably see a little better now. If we want to change the color, we can do border dash now one of the styles. So I'm going to do border dash danger, that is red. So all these styles are listed here. These are just the general styles that are built into Bootstrap. So you know, primary, secondary, success, danger, warning, info, light, dark, and white. You can modify the width, the radius, depending on what you're applying the border to. Yeah, I guess you could modify it regardless, but depending on what you're applying it to, it may or may not look good. If you're applying it to some sort of thumbnail or an avatar image, it could look really good. And if you want it, you know, all the way around, you just, instead of saying border, right, left, top, or bottom, you just do that. There we go, it's all the way around. If you just want it on two different locations, let's say left and right, you just do border dash right and border dash left, and whatever color you want for it as well. So that is it. If you have any questions, as usual, feel free to pop me a message, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Hello, in this video I am going to cover the color system in Bootstrap 5. So depending on what you're doing, whether it's borders, whether it's text or buttons or whatever, there's a certain color system, a color palette that you can use built into Bootstrap, and they have these names. If you watched any of my other videos or followed any other tutorials on Bootstrap, you will have, I'm sure you will have come across this. So primary, secondary, success, danger, warning, info. So warning, you know, wouldn't look like that with the black. That's just because they put a dark background on there. That's part of the coloring system as well. So, you know, info, light, you know, obviously white would not look good on a white background because you wouldn't be able to see it. Or on a light background where it's hard to see, so you're putting on a dark background. And then the background colors as well. So if I want to apply one of these to my div right here, I just put text dash the actual palette name that we want to use. There we go. That's it. And if I wanted this on a dark background, just put bg dash dark, bg dash dark. There we go. You can do bg-light as well, because I've already got a white background for the rest of the website. You won't be able to see it. But if you didn't have a white background and maybe the rest of the website was a darker color, maybe black or a dark gray, then that's where you would do something like bg-light. And again, you can see all the different background stuff. You don't have to just do dark and light. You have the corresponding colors as well. So if let's say I did text-white. See what that looks like now. We got a white text. Now let's put it on the success background. So bg success. Oh, wrong page, I reloaded. There we go. So that's all colors is. Depending on what thing specifically you're looking at, what component, what sort of helper class, what you're looking at in Bootstrap, they'll probably have its own respective, you know, way of implementing some sort of color. But again, it is still using these, you know, color systems. So I would get used to these. These are a great thing that you can use to get going. So if we're going to component, if we're going to badge, we have badges, and they're just using the background color. They're using like different, you know, text styles. If I go into, let's say, buttons, same thing. They're using a button color now, but again, it is still the same color name. So again, get used to these, and these are very consistent throughout. So that's it. If you have any questions, feel free to pop me a message. All the code will be in the GitHub link, which will be in the description, along with the button, not the buttons, the colors API page, And yeah, I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Hello, in this video we are going to look at the display property in Bootstrap. So this is a really cool class that you can utilize to be able to do some really simple but useful stuff. I will provide a link to the official page that you can check out all the display property stuff. So there's a bunch of classes and the description of what you can do. But essentially it just allows you to modify the way a particular element displays. So let me show you. If I was to create a div, and let's say this has a class of d-inline, and actually no, that's the display thing, ignore that. And if I put bg-danger, and let's say if I put let's just say epic little text, like so. If I save that, that's what we get. Okay, so we get a element that spans 12 columns, and it has this text in there. But if this was a span, it would be what is called an inline element. If we for some reason wanted to use a div or make it act like an inline, sort of like a span element, we just put d-inline, and if you look, it's only that amount as it takes to contain the content. And you can also do the opposite. Essentially, you can sort out the formatting. You can, let's say, have a span, and let's say if we get rid of this, refresh, we get like a regular span. So that's what we've essentially done with the div. But imagine if we want to span, but we want to have it as a block level element. All we do, we put d-block. As you can see, nothing is on its line and it isn't on anything else's line. Okay, so the other property I want to show you is you can apply this to any type of element. Is if I have a div and let's say I put hello world in here. Save, refresh, it says hello world, all cool stuff. But what if we want to just sort of hide it? We can just put class d-none. If I save that, and let's say if I put some text here, just the 3 characters F, they don't go below it, so it's not invisible, it's just not rendering. It is still there. Why would you want to do this? Maybe you've got some concealed components and the user needs to trigger an event, maybe press a button, or if they're on a login form, sometimes you press login and a bit of text maybe pops below the the text box is saying the password needs to be between 6 and 32 characters, or the passwords do not match, for example. But that stuff is concealed, so you can just have that there, have it laid out, and you just essentially remove this class in something like JavaScript or jQuery, then you reapply it when you don't want to show it. So that is the basics of the display property. Like I said, there's a bunch here. So if you want to make it look like an inline block, a table cell, do all that stuff. If you want to hide elements, but also on different sizes as well. So if you want to only hide it on the largest of screen sizes, or if you only want to hide it on small screen sizes, maybe the content is just too big for, let's say, for a phone, and on all other devices you're happy to show a particular content. Or what you have is, depending on what the actual device is, you might have the content displayed in one way or displayed in a certain way, and you can do that via hiding and visibility, and you can do display on the print property as well. That's it for the display property. If you have any questions, as usual, let me know. I will pop my Discord and my website in the description. You can email me, just the normal stuff. And as usual, I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Hello, in this video I am going to cover the flex property. So the flex utility, I'll provide a link to this so you can see more information about it, all the different ways to implement it on different screen sizes, how to justify content. But I want to show you a simple example. It allows you to affect the alignment, the specifics of the layout, and of the columns, making it a bit more specific. So it's an extension of the CSS Flexbox. And let's just implement a very simple div. So let's say if I put a div here, and let's say if we put a class P-2, this is just formatting for now. For BG-danger, I'm going to put on an inline Flexbox container, or it will be soon. If I reload that, that's what we get. Why if we want it so it only has enough to essentially, contain the content? So what we can do is d-inline-flex. If I do that, that's only enough to contain the content. And because I've got some styling for the height with the P-2, so that way the background isn't all the way along. So maybe we want it relative to what's in the actual content. That's it. There's like not much more to it than that. Like I said, I will provide a link to this. I could go over all these classes, but it's pretty self-explanatory. These are the Flexbox and inline Flexbox ones. There's some direction ones right here, so how to position them based on left and right. There's also ones how to justify them. Again, they're just very simple classes, and they're just always on the left. They're always on the right, for example. It just ensures that you're essentially going almost beyond the column implementation system. And if you want something always in the middle, always in the right, or always in between two elements, regardless of how big the space is, this works. So that's it. If you have any questions, feel free to pop me a message. And as usual, I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Hello, in this video I am going to cover the float utility in Bootstrap. So the float utility allows you to use classes to essentially change the way the content displays. So you can have a float left, float right, or float none. And none is where there's no float property. So I will provide a link to the float page on Bootstrap 5, and you can check out all the different classes, but what you learn here will be applicable to the rest of the classes. So let's say if I go here and I create a div, and before I put anything in there, let's just say I put float right on all sizes, save that, refresh. It's it's to the left. It's to the left of its parent container, which is roughly there. Okay, so but if I was to put the class float-right, this will now put it all the way to the right all the time, relative in its parent container. So that is really cool, but that is on all sizes. You may not want that. So let's say if I want something similar, but I only want it on the right on an extra large size. So what I can do is I'm going to just duplicate this. What element you apply to what your parent elements are is totally up to you. And for this, I'm going to say float right only on XXL. Because currently, if I refresh, as soon as we start hitting a breakpoint, which we just did there, it's still on the right, but we want it to go back to the left. So all we need to do, put here is a size, so XXL dash. So this means only apply the float right property on this size. So if I do that, reload, and nothing's changed. But as soon as I start resizing the window, I'll trigger the extra large breakpoint. It's now on the left, unlike the one that's always floating on the right. And if obviously I refresh and the page is reloaded on a smaller screen size, if I start making it bigger, as you see when I hit the extra large breakpoint, it triggered it back to the right. So that's it. The rest of the classes, so like I said, there's left, right, and none, and then there's all these size classes, and you can do it for left, right, and none as well. If, for example, you wanted to put it only on, let's say, large and extra large, you could just put the extra large, let's say it's the right property, and the large one. So you can combine them as well. So that's not a problem. So there's a lot of flexibility there. Really simple stuff, the float properties. If you have any questions, as usual, contact me on Discord or via my website. All the links for everything is in the description. And as usual, I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Hello, in this Bootstrap 5 video, I am going to show you interaction. So I will provide a link to the official page on the Bootstrap website. Shows you everything that you can do. I'm pretty much going to cover all of this anyway, but there's a few extra classes that you can use. But once you've understood what's covered in this video, you're all good to go. Okay, so let me create let me put a p tag. Could be any sort of element you want, and I'm going to put the text selectable in here. If I reload, as you can see, I can double click it, I can select individual characters, and then I could copy and paste it like so. I'm sure you've been on websites where you can't select some content. For me, as the user, sometimes that can be annoying, but if that's the situation that you want that experience, to do that, what you can do, so let me create another one so I can show you the difference, is let's say I create a p tag, and if you put the class of user dash select dash none, not selected, not selectable, if I reload, as you can see, I can double click this one, but I can't double click this one, so I can't actually select it. So that's a non-selectable class. And like I said, I'll provide you with this. You can do select all, select auto, and select none. And you can also do some cool stuff with links as well. So, like a HTML link, like a Ahref, that sort of stuff. If I put a p tag, and if I put an anchor tag, and I'll put href equals, and let's put hash so it doesn't really go anywhere. If I do class equals pe-none, this says it is not clickable. And I'm going to put a tab-index equals -1. This is just so it can't be tabbed onto. And then we'll put area-disabled equals true. And now we're just going to say this link cannot be clicked. So if I reload it, as you can see, we got this link. We can select it. If you didn't want that, you just put user select -none on either the p tag or the anchor tag, depending on what you don't want selectable. Before I try and click it, I can't actually click it. So it indicates visually that it's a link. So you might want that to the user, and maybe they need to perform some action. Maybe some content needs to be filled out before they can actually click on a link. Something to bear in mind, let me close this because I'm going to reopen it, is that though I can't select a non-selectable piece of text like this, it is not a foolproof version of security in terms of being able to copy and paste it. Obviously you can manually type it, but ignoring that, imagine if there's a lot of content on there, it'd be awkward to copy and paste it. I mean, manually type it out. But what you can do, you could just right click, or the user could do, go to inspect, and just copy that, and there you go, I've got it copied and pasted. So bear that in mind. This doesn't prevent the user fully from copying it, it's more just that it's not selectable. And you may not want that for security purposes, you might want that just from an interaction perspective. Maybe you have a website that the user is going to be clicking a lot on the page and maybe dragging, and there's some text on there, basically some instructions, maybe it's possibly a game or some sort of interactive experience like that, and you don't want them, because they're constantly clicking and dragging the mouse, to be selecting text randomly. Again, it might just be from an interaction perspective and less of a security perspective, hence why they're called interactions. So that's it. If you have any questions, feel free to pop me a message, and as usual, I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Hello, in this video I am going to show you the overflow property. I will provide a link to the official Bootstrap website, which covers it in, I'm going to say, more depth, basically what I've covered anyway, but just in case they're ever updated with more features or more information, I will provide that link in the description. So overflow, so if you have some It's a content, text, it could be anything, but text makes it very easy. And it's too much for the actual content, the container size, the parent container, especially this is the case when like the container has a specified size, then the content will either extend it or not appear. So this is what overflow allows you to do. So if I first of all create a couple of divs, and in these divs I am going to put just this lorem ipsum text, which we all know and love from template websites. I am put this on a new line, put this on a new line, and what I'm going to do, I'll close this so I've got a bit more real estate to play with. Copy this and paste it. So we got two instances of this. I'll also put a break line, this is just for styling, for the simple reason it would be on top of each other otherwise. So we got this. Now let me show you what happens if I was to put a style and I was to force the height to be, let's say, 60 pixels for both of them. Obviously so far both of them will act the same way, and so hide it like that. Okay, so at the moment they are the same, but now let's start adding some overflow. Okay, so if I put a class of overflow-auto, and then if I put a class here, so these are the two classes available in Bootstrap, overflow-hidden. Save, refresh. Ooh, what do we get? So part of the content is, cut off once we add overflow because, the 60 pixels. But with the overflow hidden, we can't actually access it. It's only some of it. It might be more. Whereas with the overflow auto, I can actually scroll through it. So this is a great way of having a lot of information, a lot of content on the page without actually having to make the page really long. So if there's a little section I want to read more about, I could just scroll, for example, or if there's some blog posts, I could do that. And it allows you to keep your website very compact. So that's it. Very simple stuff. But as usual, if you have any questions, feel free to pop me a message. And as usual, I look forward to seeing you in the next video. So in this video, I am going to show you how to use the position utility in Bootstrap version 5. So I will provide a link to the official API page where you can see all the different classes. I will cover most of the foundational stuff, so you will be all good to go. Something to bear in mind, if you were watching this earlier in the series and I used Alpha 1, Alpha 1 doesn't have the features in there, not to this extent, and you'll need to upgrade to Alpha 2. Alpha 2 upgrade, assuming Alpha 2 is the latest one at this point. If not, just get a newer version. If there's a beta, great, or if there's the final release, that's even better. You want to go to just getting started, introduction, and just get the latest CSS file from there and get the latest set of JavaScript files there, and just put the CSS up here and put the JavaScript up here. You can't just update the Alpha 1 to Alpha 2 here because it has an integrity check as well, and the integrity check will be different, so it won't work. So you'll need to get the latest links. Before I just mentioned that in case you come across any problems. So using the position utility, we can position items very easily in a parent container. So to do that, first of all, let's modify this so it has some style to it. So I'm going to do some inline style, obviously recommended for proper websites to do this using classes and IDs. So background color I'm going to put as gray, just so you can see the boundaries of this parent element. I'll put a height of 500 pixels. The width is set by the fact that it's a col 12. So that's fine. So there we go. To actually use this as a position utility, we need to put position dash relative. There are other position parent classes as well, like absolute and static. Like I said, this will be provided, and you can see all the different ones. Relative is the one I like, and if obviously depending on what you want, feel free to experiment. So if we want to put a, say, an object. I'm just going to draw a square in the top right. We just put, whatever we were doing, a div, for example. We put a class of, let me do it without this. Let me just put the style, and this style is going to have a width of 40 pixels, height of 40 pixels, and a background color of red. So if I reload this, this is what we get. If you want to position it in the top right, we put a class, and we need to put position dash absolute, so we're position it directly. And if I put top dash 0, so that means it's going to be at the top. If I put right dash 0, that means it's going to be all the way to the right. And obviously you can do bottom dash 0 and left dash 0. As you can see, it's all the way anchored to there, and it's always going to be there. And we can do something similar, and let's say if we have one for the center, we'll just put bottom dash 50, so it's going to be 50% up, from the bottom. Right dash 50, so from the right be 50%. There you go, always in the center. And if for the final one we want to do bottom left, we just put bottom dash 0. We put left dash 0. There you go, it's in the bottom left, and it's always going to be there. So like I said, there are more classes for positioning, as you can see. Feel free to experiment and use a different number. As you can see here, you can use more than the number that I've shown you, and you can center elements as well instead of just using them like this. So feel free to check that out. Here are some real world examples if you want to have some sort of notification thing over a button. That's a use case where you might actually want to position it. And here's another one, some sort of progress bar. This is centered vertically, and also in terms of left and right as well. So that's it. If you have any questions, feel free to pop me a message, and as usual, I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Hello, in this video I am going to show you how to implement shadows in Bootstrap 5. So shadows, pretty simple, allows you to add a shadow below one of your elements or multiple elements. So there's 4 types that you can do. No shadow, which is I guess what you already have, but it's useful to have that maybe if you're doing some sort of class switching via JavaScript, for example. Small shadow, slightly there, regular and large. So I'll show you larger shadow. All the classes are covered here. I will provide a link to this website so you can get more information. So if we put the text in here, hello world, and if I reload, we get that. Now to add a shadow, it's really simple. Shadow dash LG for large, MD for medium, and SM for small, and dash none for none. There we go, we have a small shadow. We can actually increase the height of this element so it looks a little better. There we go, that's it. Adds shadow on our object. Like I said, you can have a look at the other versions as well. It has shadow on the top. Obviously I don't have really anything at the top, but if I was to, let's say, put a margin here, like margin top dash 3, doesn't matter what I put, there you go, you got a bit of shadow on top as well. So that's it. If you have any questions, feel free to pop me a message. It looks pretty cool because it looks like it's almost like floating. But yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to pop me a message, and as usual, I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Hello, in this video I am going to run you through sizing. So sizing allows you to set a width and height with a bit more precision of an item relative to its parent container. So if you want something always, let's say 25% width, you can do that. You can also apply it to the height as well. You can obviously use this irrespective of the grid system. That is a great thing about it. But obviously within the grid system you have the column system as well. Now, obviously one of the issues with the column system, it has some extra margins, for example. So if you don't want that, or you want something within that without having to create another set of columns and rows, this is a great way to go. I will provide a link to the official sizing page on the Bootstrap website, which covers everything. I will run you through some basic width properties, and you can do it relative to the viewport as well. But once you get the concept in here, you're good to go. Okay, so first of all, I am going to add a style. This is just optional simply because I want to be able to see the element that I put within it, its child element, so I can actually see its full width. Because otherwise, there's not enough content in there because I'm only going to put a bit of text. You won't be able to tell. I'm going to put my favorite color red, put a div here, and before I put any styling or anything like that, I'm going to put style, background color white. I'm gonna put a width of 25%. Currently doesn't have a width of 25%, but this is what it looks like. Obviously you got that little bit of margin, which you can remove with extra CSS, or if it's within some other parent container, you won't get that. So to actually add this, what you do is put a class of w-25, that's 25 width. There we go. If I put p-3, this is optional. This is just going to increase the height slightly. This isn't, the height in terms of sizing for this. The relative height is h dash, 25, 50, 7500. There's auto as well, so it's just automatically, based on the content. So because this is div, this will automatically make you 100%. Okay, so if I was to put, let's say 75. It's 75%. So that's it. That's really all there is to know. Obviously, that still stays 25%. You can update that. But that's really all there is to know. Like I said, I will provide a link to this page. And as usual, I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Hello, in this Bootstrap video, I am going to show you the spacing utility. So the spacing utility allows you to add basically spacing using the margin or padding CSS feature using built-in Bootstrap classes. So to implement it, it is really simple. What I will do is provide a link to this in the description, which shows you all of the different features available for the spacing utilities. So you have M for margin, P for padding. You can also select if you want it to be the top, bottom, left or right, or X for both left and right, or Y for both top and bottom. It ranges between 0 and 1, and there's the calculation of what the actual spacing is. And you can also set the classes to auto. So there's an example here. I will show it more in depth in a second. And you can also do something called a grid gap and a negative margin as well, and horizontal centering, so feel free to check them out. You can also target a particular screen size, which again I will show you. Okay, so we have this little column 12, and I'll just put a background color of red just so you can see what is happening relative to its content. Because if it's so white, it's kind of hard to see if something moves slightly. If I put a div, and I'm just going to put the text hello world. So this is what it looks like without any spacing utility added to it. By default there's a bit of spacing, but that's to do with like the col-12 rows, that sort of stuff. And if I add a class of M, so that's we're affecting the margin. L, we're adding margin to the left of it. For -5, we're doing the maximum margin there is. So if I reload, it has moved across. So if I inspect the element and I go over, if I hover over here, as you can see, we have some margin left. If I was to untick that, this is what it looked like before. This is what it looks like with the margin left. So let me show you what we can do with padding. So if I was to add another div, and let's call this padding text. And in this case, I'm going to reload. This is what it looks like without any spacing utility added. If I add a class of P, so padding, dash XXL, so we're going to say that only apply this padding on extra large screen sizes. And -5. Now if I reload, we get padding that's being applied to the left, the top, the right and the bottom, because we did not specify specifically that we wanted it to be left to right. If we wanted left only, we could just do something like that, or T for top, that sort of stuff. But if we go back, if I resize so it goes just below extra large, as you can see the padding has now disappeared. You can obviously add separate padding utility classes for and margin utility classes for different breakpoints, so feel free to experiment. Really simple. If you have any questions, feel free to pop me a message, and as usual, I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Hello, in this video I am going to show you the text utility. So you can access all of the different information available regarding the text utility class, or text utility classes I should say, via the Bootstrap website. I will provide a link to the Bootstrap website in the description so you can access this page, and there's a lot of stuff here. We'll be covering most of it, and the rest of it will be all pretty straightforward. One thing I will say is some of the classes in here aren't supported on older versions of Bootstrap 5, so you want to make sure you have whatever the latest version is. I know that some of them aren't supported unless you have Alpha 3 or newer. Currently Alpha 3 is the latest. It may be also the case if you look at that page, let's say when Alpha 4 is out, or when beta's out, or maybe even when the release is out, some of those features may not work if you're using an older version of Bootstrap 5. So just bear that in mind. So just make sure you grab that, and make sure you grab just basically this. You want this CSS and this one here, because they've combined the Bootstrap and the Popper.js into one. You can have them separate if you really want to, or you can just do it like that, which is what I've done. Okay, so make sure you grab it from there and don't just update this from 2 to 3, for example, because it will have a different integrity, which will basically mean it won't work. Okay, I've already mentioned that, as that might trip some people up. So the first thing that we're going to do is just show you how to orient text, left, center, right, pretty simple stuff. So if I create a few p tags, I'm gonna not put any classes here yet. I'm gonna say left text. So this text will be oriented on the left. Then we are going to say center text, right text, and currently they're all going to be left oriented until we apply some classes. So if we want to explicitly state something should be on the left, we put a class equal text dash left. This won't change anything in this case, but in another scenario, maybe you have a parent class that is, or a parent element that has styling applied to it that makes it right oriented, and this particular one you want left oriented. So that's one use case. So class equals text dash center, class equals text. For this, I'm not going to put text dash right. I'm going to put text dash, then a breakpoint. So XXL, it could be XS for extra small, SM for small, MD for medium, LG for large, XL for extra large, or XXL for extra large, then dash, then left, center, or right. So what these two do is apply the text orientation on all screen sizes. What this one does, it only applies this text orientation on the extra large screen size. Anything below that, it will not apply it. So if I save that, and bear in mind, it trickles up as well. So if you applied it to the small, that would automatically apply to medium, large, and extra large. So if I reload, we get left, center, right. But watch what happens if I resize it a bit so it's no longer extra large. These two are fine because they are applied to every breakpoint, whereas this is only applied to the extra large breakpoint and above. And as XXL is the largest, it's only that one particular, size. Okay, so that is what you can do, and more information regarding this is applied right here. As you can see, all the little bit of information is right there. And now let's talk about wrapping text around stuff. So if I put a div and I put a class of badge, so this is just some styling. I'm going to put a background of danger, again just styling. And before I put the text wrap class, I'm going to put a style I'm going to put a width 6 rem, and in here I'm literally just going to put the text. This text should wrap. Reload. It doesn't wrap, so it's basically being cut off with, you know, overhanging. If we want it to wrap, we put text dash wrap like so. There we go. It now wraps around, and the actual parent container's size adjusts accordingly. Also, you can, you know, make it overflow from the parent as well. So feel free to check that out. The next thing that I'm going to show you, word break is pretty simple. It just allows you to, you know, it prevents long strings of text from, you know, breaking the layout. So feel free to check that out. But what I want to show you next is lowercase, uppercase, that sort of stuff, and capitalization. So I'm about to write a paragraph. I'm going to write in all uppercase. So I'm going to say, I wrote this in all uppercase, but will it appear in uppercase, question mark. So if I reload, yes, it appears in all uppercase. If I wanted to display some text regardless of how it was originally written in all lowercase, you put a class. Let me turn caps lock off. A class equals text dash lowercase, and if I reload that, we get it all lowercase. And as you can imagine, we have one for uppercase, which is text dash uppercase. We have one just to capitalize any words in there, which is text dash capitalize. This just capitalizes the starting letter of each word. As this was already capitalized, this doesn't change, but this one does. But bear in mind, it doesn't actually affect any capitalization throughout the word. It's only at the start of the word itself. The next thing that I'm going to show you is text font size. So if I put another p tag, and I'm going to put one for a class here, I'm going to say font size 1. For reload, it's just normal font because we haven't applied any styling or classes. We put a class equals fs-1, so this is font size 1. This is the largest one applicable within this font size, and it ranges from 1 to 6. You just put fs-1, -2, -3, -4, -5, or -6, depending on what size you are looking for. Next thing I'm going to show you is the light text, or lighter text, I should say, lighter text. And this is basically the weight of the text, so if it's thick or not thick, if it's italic or not italic, that sort of stuff. And we'll put a class of fw-lighter. Reload. As you can see, there is a lot harder to see relative to the other text, so that looks pretty darn cool, almost like print. And if we scroll down, we get all of the different font weight and italics that are available. So we got bold text, we got bolder text. So this just makes it bolder relative to its parent element. So if its parent element looked like this, it would be even more bold. And you can do the same with light and lighter. So this just, you know, relative to the parent one. The light isn't that much of a difference. That's the reason I demonstrated this. That's just normal. Again, feel free to apply that normal class if you want to, especially in combination with something like JavaScript, because your parent class might have, I don't know, bold applied to it, and then you might want something in particular, maybe a certain action has occurred for it to be normal, and then you can do this. And what I want you to do as an extra task is experiment with the line height. Pretty simple. If you have low line height, then there's literally no gap between the lines, but you can make it so there's a huge gap between the lines as well. So this might be, you know, good if you want to spread content out, make it a bit more readable. I find that's a bit hard to read. I find something like one of these two is probably a nice middle ground. And obviously you can check out monospace text as well. You can reset the color as well, and feel free to check out the text decoration. That's the wrong way to do as an next task. Check these out, and also check out all of the other different text classes. So like we covered the lowercase one, but try the uppercase. Pretty simple, but have a go. So that's it for the text utility class. Simple stuff, but really useful. If you have any questions, feel free to pop me a message, and as usual, I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Hello, in this video I am going to show you the vertical alignment utility class, or classes I should say. So it's pretty simple. I will provide a link to this in the description. There's this vertical alignment on one line. I will demonstrate that, and you can do it within a table as well. Pretty simple stuff. It's essentially the same thing. Okay, so first of all, let me create a few pieces of text on, say, baseline. This is just going to be what the normal height is going to be. Top, this will be oriented at the top. Middle, this is slightly different to baseline. Bottom, text dash top, and text dash bottom. Currently, it does nothing. We get this. Now let's actually add the classes. So if I just put these as a span, so they're all on the same line, the benefit of doing it that way is it ensures we can see where, I'll fix that error in a second. It ensures we can see, there we go. It ensures we can see where each one is relative to, the others. Okay, so if I do that, currently we should see no change, which is good. Now what we're going to do is, how do I do, there's square selection. I was thinking, where do I do that? I'm going to say class. So that's Alt, and then you click and drag. It depends on the text editor. And I'll put align dash. This is where it changes. This will be baseline. This will be top, middle, bottom, text dash top, and text dash bottom. If I reload, I spelled a line wrong. Let me just fix that. Boom, done. So as you can see, things have slightly adjusted relative to everything else. So that is how you align text, and I guess it doesn't have to just be text. It could be just other images and other content as well relative to what else is on that line. Pretty simple stuff. Like I said, you can implement it in a table. I'll provide a link to this in the description, and I want you to, as an extra task, implement this so you can see what it looks like when working in a table. That's it. If you have any questions, feel free to pop me a message, and as usual, I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Hello, in this video I am going to show you the visibility utility class. So pretty simple. It allows you to make stuff invisible, visible, simple as that. I will provide a link to this page which shows you, I'll say, all the features of the visibility utility class. There's not much. I'm going to literally show you everything there is, but you'll have that in case they update that anyway. So first of all, let's create a couple of divs. The first one, I'm going to say hello. Second one, I'll say, you guessed it, world. So if I reload, we get these two pieces of content wrapped inside of a div. If I want to make something invisible, you just put invisible, like so. Reload. So all we had to do was put a class of invisible, and then that particular object is now invisible. But have a look what's happened. Though it's invisible, the world div is still on a new line. It is still laid out on the website as if that other content, that other first div was still there. So it doesn't actually remove it in a sense of it's no longer in the flow of the layout. It's still there. It's just you can't see it. So if we look at what's actually gone on, if we inspect, go to the actual div, what that class essentially does, it changes the CSS visibility property to hidden. And there is also a class called visible, you'll see no difference in this example for the simple reason it's already visible. If you made it invisible from something else and maybe you want to trigger it back on, maybe a button press or some event has occurred, you can apply the visible class, maybe using some JavaScript or jQuery. So that's it. Really simple stuff, really short. If you have any questions, feel free to pop me a message on Discord or on my website. All of the links for that will be in the description. And as usual, I look forward to seeing you in the next video.